Holy City Center Radio. It is episode 68, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today, it's January 6th, 2023. Happy Friday. I hope you all have a great weekend, or had a great weekend if you listen to this later. Hope you've enjoyed this week of Holy City Center Radio, where we have now expanded to 3 episodes a week. I did it. I survived. Looks like this is something doable with my schedule. So shouldn't be a problem to continue this going forward. For those who may have missed it, the plan is to do more episodes of Holy City Center Radio each week, shorter episodes where I'll talk about the biggest stories, less discussion, less opinion. There will still be episodes where, I might dive deep into a topic. And of course, there's also going to be interviews and things like that. But the plan is to try to have more content out there so we can talk about stories a lot easier than we used to, a lot more easily than we used to. So I hope you've enjoyed having these kind of like quick hit stories in the morning or whenever you're listening to kind of get caught up in the news you may have missed. I've enjoyed doing it. And looking forward to continuing it. So thank you so much. So without any further ado, let's get into the top stories to get you started here in your weekend here in Charleston. Got an update to the sad story from earlier this week. A funeral has been announced for prominent Charleston attorney David Ayler, scheduled to take place this Sunday. This is according to a few folks close to David, and as well as it's now been posted publicly online and things like that. If you missed the story, Ayler, who is, like I said, a prominent local attorney here in Charleston, 41 years old, was found dead in his downtown Charleston home this past Monday. The 3 p.m. funeral is scheduled to take place at Seacoast Church in Mount Pleasant. The Charleston Coroner's Office has said that it's probably going to take at least 2 months to determine what caused the sudden death of David. And they will release it publicly when they have those results, because it's going to take some time. So as I mentioned in the last episode, I believe people want answers. It's shocking when someone passes young, especially someone that was so well known in the community and lots of people have seen out and working and things like that. But it's going to take some time. So it will, as the coroner's office said, probably going to take a few months before we have some answers. But more importantly right now is the focus on his family and friends. And they, as I mentioned, the funeral will be at 3 p.m. this Sunday at Seacoast Church in Mount Pleasant. There's also expected to be a chance, like a wake or something similar to it as well. So be sure to check over the weekend, posts on Facebook groups and on social media and wherever you may find it with more details about that. One more update before we get into some of the new news that we have going on here. I mentioned in a recent episode about South Carolina Senator Tom Davis, who was ticketed for public intoxication after he, at the time, from what we heard, and now you'll find out here in a moment, there have been some conflicting information about this situation. So what we learned earlier this week was Senator Davis was in a car. He said he had left like a gathering of some kind, and he had been drinking there. As he started to leave, decided that he was in no condition to drive, had too much alcohol, pulled over in some kind of parking lot, was sitting in his car for over an hour when a police officer approached him. And for whatever reason, there wasn't a whole lot of other details. It just ended with him getting ticketed for public intoxication. Well, now that the police report has been released and Post and Courier got the details, it's a little different. There's some conflicting information and some new details that came to light. So here's what I learned from the Post and Courier, who, like I said, got this information from the police report. So apparently, yes, he was ticketed, but it was more than that. He actually spent at least 6 hours in a Lexington County jail on that public intoxication charge after the Beaufort County lawmaker was found slumped over his steering wheel in a shopping center parking lot, and then failed a field sobriety test in the early morning hours of New Year's Day. Again, this is according to police reports. Senator Davis was released from jail after a hearing where he received a $1,000 bond. Now, the town of Lexington police officers found Davis in the driver's seat of a parked car close to 2 a.m. on January 1st. The windows were fogged up and his head was slumped down on the steering wheel. He was in a Target shopping center on Sunset Boulevard, again, according to police report. The officer said Davis told them that he had left his girlfriend's house after getting into an argument with her and was asked to leave. It actually, I should say, the article says got into an argument. It may not have been with her, so that it may have been with someone else. It doesn't specify who the argument was with or how many people were there. So he got in some kind of argument and was asked to leave his girlfriend's home. Davis told the Post and Courier when they asked him that he was leaving a friend's house and he was not involved in any argument, nor was he asked to leave. So apparently, when he was intoxicated, he told the officers one thing, but then told the Post and Courier something slightly different. Davis also told the Post and Courier that he was divorced in 2020. He said, quote, I left the party after the second the football game was over and drove for about a minute or two at most. I noticed that I wasn't in a condition to drive. I pulled over. My car was off. I had no intention of driving, end quote. According to a police report, Davis told officers that he didn't think he was intoxicated, but the officers found that, quote, Davis had an extreme slurred speech and an odor of alcoholic beverage emanating from him, end quote. Davis told the officers that he was drinking alcohol at a party and was resting before heading back to his home in Beaufort, which was like a 2.5 hour drive away. On January 3rd, when asked about it, Davis told the Post and Courier that he was heading back to where he was staying in Columbia. So some conflicting information there. Not sure why he would tell the police officers one thing and the Post and Courier another. Bottom line, though, it just, the facts of the case are basically the same, that he was somewhere, drank too much, left, decided to park because he didn't think he should be driving. And then the police ticketed him for public intoxication. New details where he actually was brought to a like a holding area jail for a few hours. So new details starting to come out, as well as some conflicting information between what he told officers and what he told the Post and Courier. Which, although, like I said, doesn't seem like the details that he's giving different stories about are a big deal, but there is a reason, whatever that reason may be, that he's not sharing the same information with both parties. So certainly interesting, to say the least. All right, moving on. This is a really bizarre story. Sad and just, like I said, just bizarre. It's hard to really know what else to call it. But a woman by the name of Leslie Lamone, who had been missing for 9 months, it turns out she was the woman whose body was found in a clothing donation bin in Kershaw County. So if you haven't heard this story, there's some kind of clothing donation bin, again, in Kershaw County, where someone, they smelled like a weird odor, and then they also, this detail just came out at first. We didn't know this part of it. But when they got kind of close to the donation bin, they said they saw something that, maybe looked like a foot or a leg. And there was a sock, that appeared to be with a foot inside of it. And so they called police. And when they came to look at this donation bin, they found a body. And now this woman has been identified. Her decomposed remains were found around 1 p.m. on New Year's Eve in this unincorporated community just southwest of Camden. The bin, it turns out, again, this is Post and Courier, it was rusted. It hadn't been checked in a while. There were signs that read clothing and shoes drop off, but it had been faded and ripped. So this is an old donation bin that just really wasn't ever checked. And when officers went there, unfortunately, they found the body, and it's this woman who had been missing for months. The woman's daughter, 25-year-old Hannon Gates, says she wonders how no one noticed, for so long that there was a body in there. And they told her that there were VHS tapes underneath the body. So, clearly this bin had not been checked in a very, very long time. Very sad story. Still a lot of questions that are out there. Why is this bin not checked? Whose bin is this? What's the story behind it? And more importantly, why was this woman's body found in there? Foul play? Like, what exactly happened? So investigators are still trying to figure out what exactly happened, how this woman ended up inside the bin. The daughter said that her mother was addicted to drugs. Could have possibly died from an overdose. Investigators are still waiting for toxicology reports. So still a lot of questions in this really strange case. And hopefully we'll get some answers, for the family and find out what happened to this woman. But a very, very strange story out of the upstate out of Kershaw County. And I'll be sure to update you all as more information comes in. All right, so from updating some older stories to the big news that happened on Thursday, the South Carolina Supreme Court ruled that the state's law that bans abortion at 6 weeks into pregnancy is unconstitutional. In a 3-2 vote, the justices determined that the law's restrictions violate the state's constitution's right to privacy. This decision comes about 2 years after Governor Henry McMaster signed the measure, which is kind of frequently known as the Heartbeat Bill or Heartbeat Act. So about 2 years ago, he signed it into law when Roe v. Wade was essentially overturned. A lot of states went to implement different bans. South Carolina was one of them. The measure would have banned abortions after cardiac activity from the fetus was detected, which is typically about 6 weeks. It included exceptions for pregnancies caused by rape and incest or circumstances that endangered the pregnant person's life. In the ruling's conclusion, Chief Justice Donald Beatty wrote, quote, "We hold that our state constitutional right to privacy extends to a woman's decision to have an abortion. The state unquestionably has the authority to limit the right of privacy that protects women from state interference with her decision, but any such limitation must be reasonable and it must be meaningful, and that the timeframes imposed must afford a woman sufficient time to determine she is pregnant and to take reasonable steps to terminate the pregnancy. 6 weeks is quite simply not a reasonable period of time for these two things to occur, and therefore the act violates our state's constitution's prohibition against unreasonable invasions of privacy," end quote. The ruling means that abortion remains legal in South Carolina through it's about 20 to 22 weeks into a pregnancy. I think I've seen numbers that say like 21 weeks, 6 days. It varies a little bit depending on circumstances and things, but basically 20 to 22 weeks, which is what it was prior to Roe v. Wade being overturned. So big news. I don't think people realize. A lot of people didn't realize the state Supreme Court was having a hearing about this and discussing it and voting on it. Let alone thought that they would overturn this law. I don't think a lot of people had faith that that's what was going to happen, but they indeed did do it. The South Carolina Supreme Court ruling 6-week abortion ban unconstitutional. Governor Henry McMaster and the Attorney General Alan Wilson have both released statements that, in effect, have said that they're going to look into options and perhaps challenge this and appeal it. And so we'll see what happens. But this act wasn't in effect anyway, because pretty much as soon as it was passed, like Planned Parenthood, ACLU, and some other organizations and folks immediately sued and said that this shouldn't be the case. So it's never even been in effect. So, we haven't seen any effects from it because of that. And so nothing really ever changed here in South Carolina. And now for the foreseeable future, that will continue to be the case. In other news, Moncks Corner, their police chief is resigning. Chief David Brabham Jr. has resigned, citing medical reasons as why he will no longer be the police chief. He was sworn in September of 2022 and came to the department after serving as a major at the Berkeley County Sheriff's Office. So Chief Brabham will be stepping down due to medical reasons. Moving on to food news. Page's Okra Grill is temporarily closing for renovations. It's going to be going on this month. It started on Wednesday, January 4th. They shut down operations at their Coleman Boulevard location. They said they'd been needing to make replacements and improvements to this more than 50-year-old building. And so they've decided that this is the time to do it. Some of those renovations are going to include things like a bathroom plumbing improvement, expanded women's bathroom capacity, sprinkler system inside and out, an all-new hood system to provide better air conditioning in the kitchen. They're even going to be installing a new roof, so lots of work will be going on. It's expected to last through the end of January. However, they're going to continue to have a food truck that'll be serving takeout for lunch and dinner beginning on Monday, January 9th. So on Monday, you can still go over to Page's Okra Grill. You're just going to have to go to the food truck to take advantage of their menu and to enjoy some of those items. And looks like they're aiming for February to be back open as normal. That could change, of course, but we will keep you posted on all of that. In other food news, Charleston Wine and Food has a new executive director. Charleston Wine and Food's board of directors this week announced that Alyssa Mott-Smith is the organization's new executive director. They made the decision following what they said was a national search that ended up leading to applications from over 70 individuals. And they decided that Smith, who is a native Charlestonian, was the best person for the job. She actually stepped into the interim role back in April of 2022 after serving as Charleston Wine and Food's marketing and communications director for 6 years. I know Alyssa, I've spoken to her several times and have worked with her through Holy City Center on different events and things, obviously a lot with wine and food. So always, I was not surprised that she was the person named to be the executive director. She's been so involved in that organization. And, when someone steps into the interim role, there's a pretty good chance they're going to get hired. So I think it was the right move. I think it's good to keep it with someone who's from Charleston versus someone outside the area. Since this is a local event, of course, they bring in lots of people from outside, but, the event has been trying to shift their focus a little bit more to everybody locally, first of all, not just particular segments of Charleston. And so I think she's the right person to lead them forward. So congrats to Alyssa. This festival is coming up on its 17th season, and they are planning on taking place from March 1st to 5th throughout the area. Visit charlestonwineandfood.com for more information. Charleston has been home to plenty of productions, movies, TV shows over the last few years, and one of the most popular ones will be returning this February for its third season. That's right, Outer Banks is coming back. It's a super popular Netflix show. It's filmed its 3 seasons throughout the Charleston area. They have gone to other locales as well, but they have filmed a lot, especially that first season in the Charleston area. The third season will come out on Thursday, February 23rd. If you're unfamiliar, Outer Banks is an action-adventure mystery, that follows a tight group of local teens in the Outer Banks of North Carolina. So yes, that's right. It's about Outer Banks, but it's filmed here in Charleston. But you know what? It works. It's a very popular show. It kind of skews towards a younger audience, but I know of plenty of folks of all ages that do enjoy it. I did watch the first season. Show is fine. Not something I would normally seek out. If it wasn't Charleston related, I probably wouldn't have watched. But it was fine. It was entertaining, and it's always fun with these shows. Even if you aren't a big fan of the show itself, it's fun to see all the different sites and things that you recognize in town. Buildings, streets, businesses, and things like that. So whether you love the show or maybe just want to see what parts of Charleston made it in there. Plus, a lot of Charlestonians served as extras on this, just like other productions that come to town. Maybe you'll see a friend or someone in the background in some of these scenes. So Thursday, February 23rd is when you can check out that third season. All right, let's talk local sports. The RiverDogs, they've got a little while before their next season kicks off, and they try to defend their back-to-back titles. But they are going to host their 19th annual Hot Stove Banquet on January 27th. This will be at the regular ballpark. Instead of some of the other venues they've had around town, they're bringing it back to the ballpark in the Segura Club, which is that kind of private area down the first baseline that you may have seen. Kind of looks like a suite almost, and they have a bar in there and they serve food and things like that. So it should be a really good time. This year's featured guest is Mike Veck, the organization's president emeritus. Veck is a longtime baseball executive, marketing expert, and he's the mastermind behind some of the RiverDogs' most memorable promotions. So if there's something that the RiverDogs have done through the years that you thought was particularly interesting, wild, bizarre, Mike Veck was probably behind it. Tickets to the event are already on sale. So it'll be a fun event that you can go to. The event will open at 6 with a cocktail hour. They have a silent auction. There's also baseball memorabilia that you can bid on from past hot stove speakers, which includes former major league players from the Yankees, from the Braves, and so on and so forth. They also have collectibles from the RiverDogs director of fun, Bill Murray, vacation packages, and more. In addition, the RiverDogs are going to introduce their manager for the upcoming season. So it should be a lot of fun. You get to hear Veck talk as well. He actually isn't just involved in baseball. He is a renowned speaker and entrepreneur as well. So it should be a really good chat. You can go to the RiverDogs website to purchase tickets to the 19th annual Hot Stove Banquet. From one minor league team to another here in Charleston, the Battery, they announced that their opener is set for March 11th. So the Battery will be back in action before you know it, just a couple months away. Isn't that wild? That game on March 11th will be at Patriots Point, where they now have been playing for the last couple of seasons. They'll be playing Phoenix Rising Football Club. This interconference clash is the first ever meeting between the two clubs, as the Battery will kick off their 30th annual season. I've been to the new stadium over at Patriots Point a couple of times. Really enjoy it. It's a nice space. They've done a really good job. They bring in food trucks. They have these cool like suites that are not quite what you're thinking. They're almost like an open container that you see, in the port. And they have a top and a bottom, so it's almost like 2 stories. And when you get those suites, I think they have different packages you can get, but food and beverages are included with it. But if you're not looking to spring that kind of money, tickets, and any other seats in the stadium are super affordable. It's a good time, family friendly. So if you haven't done that yet, I highly recommend it. And March 11th will be your first chance to do it. Further details on other matchups this season, kickoff time for this first game, ticket sales, etc. That'll all be announced soon. So be on the lookout for that. I hope you all enjoy your weekend. One thing you can do this weekend, Patriots Point, we just mentioned. Well, Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, right by the stadium, is hosting their annual Pay What You Can weekend this weekend, Saturday, January 7th and Sunday, January 8th. It's just as it sounds. Instead of paying your standard admission fees, families are encouraged to pay whatever amount of money they can afford. So this is a great opportunity for families to go check out the museum, get on the Yorktown, see the Vietnam Experience exhibit that they have, the Medal of Honor Museum, and so much more. I always recommend this for folks who are coming to Charleston, especially people who are coming here with families. It's informative, it's interesting. And even if you're not normally like a history person or military history buff or whatever, just being on the Yorktown, that alone is pretty neat. And being able to walk out and see the harbor and see these, amazing military planes on the flight deck, it's a pretty cool experience. So I definitely recommend it. And this weekend's a great chance to do that, where it's pay what you can. So if the admission fees, if you have a big family or something like that, and you're just like, oh, I don't know if I can do that, you can save a little bit of money. The deal is only offered at the ticket window, so you can't purchase tickets online. You have to go there in person. They'll be open from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. both days, but keep in mind that the ticket office closes at 4 each day, so make sure you get there before 4 and allow yourself enough time to enjoy everything that the museum has to offer. If you need more information, go to patriotspoint.org. And finally, the Black Food Truck Festival is expanding what they're doing in the community. Instead of, or in addition to hosting the food truck festival itself, they're going to host the Battle of the Bands at the Music Farm on Sunday, January 15th at 8 p.m. The show is going to feature some Charleston bands, or I'm sorry, one Charleston band, the Black Diamond Band. They have one coming from Florence. The name of that act is Live in the Flesh Experience. They'll also have the Red Sample Band, who is out of Atlanta. Charleston's 2019 DJ of the Year, DJ Scrib, will also perform, while local singer LaFay will host the evening. Tickets are available for purchase at blackfoodtruckfestival.com. If you're unfamiliar with the event, they've held a couple of food truck festivals now. The most recent one in the spring drew 15,000 people and generated more than $1 million for Black-owned businesses in the Charleston region. They have a full economic report on their website if you want more details on that. So congrats to the event and their founder, Marcus Hammond, for expanding, going from the food truck festival to now hosting a Battle of the Bands, which is pretty great. And as a side note, I'm loving what the Music Farm has been doing since reopening. Your typical bands are coming through there that you would expect, but they're doing a lot with local bands, comedians, and more. It's been really cool to see what they do. So this should be another awesome local event that's unique to the Charleston area. So a lot to catch you up on. So this was a little longer than we expect with some of these episodes, but for the most part, we're looking at the 15 to 20 minute range. Get you caught up on all the latest information. I hope you've enjoyed this new format. If you have any suggestions, questions, whatever, email me, Christian@holycitycenter.com. If you like what you heard, please rate and subscribe. Share the show with someone you think who may be interested in listening. You can also go to patreon.com/holycitycenter to help support the podcast and the site. You can also go to holycitycenter.com/shop to pick up Holy City Center merchandise, which also supports all this stuff here. Before I say goodbye, I also have to say thank you to Lindsay Marie Collins of LMC Sound System, who produces every episode, and also Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each and every episode of Holy City Center Radio. I hope you all have a great weekend. I hope this first week of 2023 was not too bad, and you go into the weekend happy, healthy, and have a great time. And I look forward to recording another episode for you all, which you should hear on Monday. Until then, good night and good luck.